I don't do breathing exercises every single day. I don't obsess over PRI patterns, and I definitely do not care about being perfectly neutral all the time. I simply use breathing drills when I need them, sort of like tools in a toolbox, and I've never been more pain-free, resilient, and stronger than I am right now. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to actually use breathing exercises the right way, why they help at first, why they often stop working, and the biggest mistakes that keep people stuck. But real quick, before you invest time into this video, you might be wondering who the heck I am and why you should even listen to me. Now, I'm not trying to be some rehab influencer, posture guru, or breathing expert who wants to impress you with a bunch of acronyms. I'm simply just a guy who spent 7 years stuck in chronic pain, obsessing over posture, mobility, breathing drills, and biomechanics, trying to fix himself. And eventually I figured out what actually worked. Not just to feel better for 10 minutes, but to get out of pain, move better, get strong again, and to build a body that actually felt resilient. So my plan is to break it down for you because I don't want you wasting years the way I did. So here are the 5 biggest reasons breathing exercises might not be fixing your pain, your asymmetries, or your mobility. Breathing drills are supposed to reduce tension, that muscle knot, that weird tension between your shoulder blades, whatever it might be. They're meant to help your body relax into a new position, not fight its way into that position. There's a lot of people who treat them like a workout. They're squeezing everything as hard as they possibly can, crunching their abs, clenching their hamstrings, holding on for dear life, and wondering why they don't feel better. I know because that's exactly what I was doing when I was first introduced to breathing exercises. When I first started doing things like the 90-90 hip lift, I attacked it like a freaking gym bro. I thought if I just try super hard at the exercise every single breath, then I'll probably get more out of it. So I was overly crunching my abs, driving through my feet too hard, squeezing my hamstrings and my glutes until they were just cramping, almost like a Charlie horse, and then turning what was supposed to be a down regulation drill into this max effort ab exercise of sorts with every exhale. Classic gym mindset, but I was fighting fire with fire. The whole point of breathing drills is to show your body it can let go. It can calm down into positions it normally would guard against, not force yourself there with even more tension. And once I stopped actually trying so hard, I actually started to get more out of them. I got better mobility, less guarding, less pain. So if your breathing exercises feel like a fight, right? Like you're holding all this tension, you're having sore muscles after you're doing the exercises, you're probably missing the point. A breathing drill can absolutely create a window of less pain and more mobility. But if you're not using that motion, your body has no reason to keep it. So you feel better for a few minutes, maybe even a few hours, and then you go right back to your old patterns. Not because the drill was bad, but because you never taught the body how to own and use that new mobility or range of motion. There was a period where I thought I needed to get perfectly neutral, fix all my asymmetries, and restore full mobility before I was allowed to even, touch a weight again. So I kept kicking the can down the road, was doing more drills, more resets, more theory of sorts, and unfortunately, it got me nowhere. My pain was still there, my mobility wasn't really sticking, and I felt dependent on these breathing drills. What finally changed things was adding strength back into my weekly routine. I started taking the positions and motions I was unlocking with breathing work and actually loading them. I'd use isometrics, hamstring work, strength work, and eventually bigger lifts like squats and deadlifts to teach my body, hey, this position is safe. You can handle force here. So breathing essentially was opening the door, getting me used to these new positions and mobilities, but the strength is what was teaching my body how to actually live there. A great example of this is the 90-90 hip lift. Great exercise, was helping me control an anterior pelvic tilt, but again, I'd walk around or be on the training floor for hours and I would just go right back to that pattern. But when I started loading Nordic isometric holds, that's when things really started to click and I could maintain that pelvis neutrality a lot longer. And that eventually led to me getting out of my hip impingement symptoms that I had had for multiple years. This is where a lot of people get lost. They hear a bunch of acronyms. They get told they're a PEC pattern, a right BC, left AIC, a patho PEC, yours truly, or whatever else the person or the internet is telling you at that point in time. And suddenly they stop looking at themselves as an individual and start treating themselves like some sort of like a category. Now, look, patterns are super useful. They help us describe what we're seeing and communicate those types of ideas, right? They help you just organize a complex system as the human body, but they are not who you are as an individual. And this is one of my biggest mistakes. When I first got introduced to this stuff, I was told I needed to get out of a left AIC, which eventually turned into a patho PEC because they didn't quite know what to do with me at that point in time. But if I wanted to get out of pain, I had to get out of these patterns. So I was like, I'm gonna go all in on this. Started chasing the idea, was going down rabbit holes online, looked at everything through that lens of left AIC, patho PEC, whatever it was that I was dealing with. And then in the process, I stopped paying attention to what was actually going on with me, my specific hip limitations, my torso rotation, my compensations, hip hike, my training history, my injury history, and my actual goals in life and fitness and everything that I wanted to do after I was out of pain. Because a pattern does not tell the full story. It doesn't tell you that I had been a baseball player since I was a kid at 5 years old, that I ran hurdles for years and only led with my right leg, and had built a body around these very specific adaptations and limitations. So once I stopped trying to force myself into this rehab archetype and started really just treating myself as an individual, that's when things got way more clear. And the breathing drills, they became more useful and just not as some sort of end-all be-all to fix a specific pattern and then my pain, but more as a plug-and-play tool for specific limitations that I actually had. And this really leads into point number 4, which is not matching the breathing drills to your current mobility, your current abilities. And so a lot of people are doing the right exercise on paper or for the algorithm that's been presented to them for their acronym, but they're doing it with the wrong body. They'll do a 90-90 hip lift because everyone says it's the move to do for really everything PRI related or breathing drill related. But the second they get into that position, they're hiking a hip, they're arching their back, their knees twisting in, ribs are flaring, or there's some other compensation that they're just using to get into that position. And at that point, you're not really doing the exercise, you're just doing your compensation pattern inside of that exercise. And again, I did this for years. I was doing the classic moves. Again, 90-90 hip lift, adductor pullback, right glute max. I was doing it all. And I wasn't really getting results. I would kind of feel better, but none of the hip internal rotation stuff would stick. I wasn't actually making progress, but that's because I wasn't asking whether I could actually perform the movements without compensation. And even a lot of practitioners can't spot when you're compensating during those exercises. So I really just started to change how I did my mobility testing. And instead of forcing in-range mobility or saying like, yeah, I can get to this in-range hip flexion. I've got it. I really just started to stop my tests whenever I saw compensation show up. So if my hips started hiking, say at 45 degrees here, then I would just essentially stop the test. And this would be my actual starting point, was when I saw the compensations. And so I would then match the drills to my actual usable range of motion before the compensation started. And that's when things actually started to stick. Things actually started to change for my body and how I moved, and my pain significantly started to reduce. Because now the exercise was essentially meeting me where I was instead of feeding into the exact strategies that I was trying to get away from, the compensations I was trying to get away from. So, if you're doing the drill, but you're clearly cheating the way you're doing it essentially, or you're noticing that you're not actually improving in your mobility tests after the exercise, then that drill is either a little too advanced for the mobility standpoint that you're currently at, or you just need to find an exercise that's more specific to you right here, right now, and some of the compensations that you're presenting with. And if you want help with something and spotting some of those compensations, kind of how to learn that yourself and just get some exercises that actually fit your body a little bit better, you can check out my free posture mobility guide, which is linked down in the description. This is one that a lot of people don't want to hear, especially when they've gone down the rabbit hole and started doing breathing exercises. But, sometimes the issue mainly is just not a muscle tension problem. Sometimes it's more connective tissue, scar tissue, post-surgical changes, long-standing tissue adaptations, or even just like how your skeleton is shaped in some ways. The difference between functional scoliosis and a structural scoliosis, for example. So, something that is not going to magically melt away because you got your nervous system to relax for 2 minutes. And this is where breathing drills can become essentially just a waste of time. I mean, you can use them to work around these areas that structurally just can't change, at least with the breathing stuff that you're doing, and that can help, but you're probably not going to make the changes to that specific area that you're wanting through breathing exercises. And I say that because I recently worked with a client who really was lacking a ton of shoulder external rotation. And we tried a ton of breathing drills. We tried soft tissue work, have them throw on the cross ball, foam roller, all kinds of stuff in there. Should open it up right there. And it just wasn't changing. And then eventually we leaned into more direct loading isometric work, kind of FRC, pails and rails style approach. And that actually helped the most, much better than any breathing drill. Why? Because he had multiple surgeries on that right shoulder of his and just a ton of scar tissue that had built up. He even had the surgeon say, I tightened that guy up a lot to make sure you don't have problems in the future. So again, no matter how much we relaxed the muscles, the tissue itself just wasn't ready to give us what we wanted, essentially. And that meant that he just needed more time, more loading, the right kinds of stress that would actually stimulate changes in connective tissue, not the relaxation stuff we were giving him with the breathing work. So this is just a reminder that the breathing drills, they're not weak or bad exercises to be doing or bad intervention. They're just very specific to neurological adaptations in reducing muscle tension. So breathing exercises, they're not useless. I still use them. I use them essentially every day with clients. And I think they can be incredibly helpful for improving mobility, improving our posture, and reducing chronic pain. But they're not the destination. They're the starting point, and they're what help create space, reduce that tension, and give you access to new motion. But then again, they're that bridge. Like, you have to do something with that mobility, those improvements in the range of motion. You have to load those things up, strengthen it, and actually use it in real life. So that way your body builds trust in these new movement patterns, in these new mobilities, and you keep it for the long term.